So, hello there. Welcome back to another Night of the Movies podcast. And in these podcasts, I talk all things music, TV, and whatever I want, whenever I want. And in today's podcast, just make sure I'm centre frame here. In today's podcast, I'm going to be talking about Barry seasons 1 to 4 and why the show was a masterclass in how to balance comedy and suspense. But just before I do that, I should say what I say at the start of every podcast I do, that if you are watching this podcast on YouTube, hello there to my viewers, but you prefer to listen to these podcasts, well, you can at Night of the Movies on Spotify. And if you're already listening on Spotify, I do that to podcast listeners, then you can also check this podcast out visually on my YouTube channel at Night of the Movies on that platform as well. Likewise, wherever you may be watching or listening to the podcast, please don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoy the podcast, of course, and leave me some feedback on things to improve on in future podcasts, because there's always things to improve on. Also, I should say, and many people have been following the channel recently know what I'm going to say here, it is still the ongoing saga of hay fever. Yes, I first spoke about my problems with hay fever on this channel on my podcast on Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, and those problems have continued. Although my hay fever isn't that bad today, I'm recording this quite early in the morning, so I might end up sneezing quite a lot during this podcast, because that's what usually happens in the morning with me and hay fever. I usually sneeze quite a lot in the morning, and then I'm fine in the afternoon, but I'm having to record this in the morning today because of the way my day has worked out. But the warning that I want to give is that I might be sniffling throughout this podcast, and I also might sound a bit bummed up in this podcast, and that's why, because it's what hay fever does to you. And I'm also feeling a bit under the weather as well, because that's what hay fever does to you too. So just a little warning there before we get into the topic of today's discussion. But without further ado, let's get into it. Let's get into my thoughts on Barry seasons 1 to 4. So, this show's ended now. I'm late to the party reviewing this series. You know, it's been around for like the past 5 years, I think. I think the show started in 2018. So it's been around for quite a long while when you really think about it, especially in the TV world, if you will. But I heard loads of amazing things about this show, about how good it was, how well written it was, how well directed it was, and all that jazz. But I always felt off about watching it. Like, there's something about this show, just like hearing it was great and everything, that put me off watching it for so long. But then when I heard that it was on its final series and that it was ending soon, I thought, you know what, I'm going to give this show a shot, see what everyone is raving about. And here is the thing with this series. Here's the thing with the series. I didn't latch onto it straight away. I thought Series 1 was good, but I didn't think it was great. You know, they had some great moments in there, but it was a bit of an uncomfortable watch, and it took a bit of adjusting to. And I know that it was meant to be uncomfortable, by the way, I understand that. But I'd also, you know, when I was sitting down to watch this on like a Friday or Saturday night, I didn't want to feel uncomfortable, you know what I mean? I wanted to enjoy myself, and when I was watching the first series, I don't know what, there's something about it where I couldn't quite adjust to it. But then as the show went on, I really started to get into this series, and I got invested in the characters and their storylines. I felt the show got more engaging. I felt the directing from Bill Hader got so much better. The performances just got more and more powerful as the series went on, and I ended up absolutely adoring this show with its final series, the 4th series, which ended a couple of weeks ago now. You know, the last series of the show, a couple of weeks ago, the last episode of the last series, and it stuck the landing in the best way possible. I sat there at the end of this show, both absolutely stunned and laughing my head off, which is why this show works. It is shocking in some parts. There are some really shocking and scary moments, genuinely scary to watch, and it's a very suspense-filled show. You're watching and you're constantly gripping the edge of your seat. It's that suspenseful. but it's also very funny because it's written by Bill Hader, and he obviously has done many comedies in his time. He had his start on SNL, so he's been around for a long while, and it's written by him, and so there is a lot of funny moments in there, a lot of dark humour, but quite a lot of the time it works really, really well. And yeah, I was surprised by how amazing the balance was between the comedy and suspense in this show. As I've titled in this podcast today, it's a masterclass on how to balance suspense with comedy, and it just works so brilliantly. And it's such an unconventional show as well, with a premise that's so weird, but I don't know, they make it work. Like, the premise of Series 1 is this. The show follows Barry, who earns money for killing for a living, and he wants to give up his profession now, and accidentally he joins this acting class, then falls for this girl called Sally, and realises that he wants to become an actor because she's trying to pursue acting as well, and whilst he's trying to pursue his new profession, he keeps getting roped into killing people. And so it's a really weird premise, and it's two ideas which you wouldn't usually put together. Someone's trying to join an acting class, trying to become an actor, and he's killing people at the same time. You wouldn't put those two things together. And yet Bill Hader makes his work, because this show is so cleverly written that the way those two ideas are intertwined with each other is just masterful. And the way everything goes from Series 1 onwards, like, I don't want to go into spoilers in case people haven't seen the show yet, but Series 1 ends in a specific way, and the rest of the show is all about the way Season 1 ends. And it's so good. It's really good. I really started to get into it Series 2. As I've already mentioned, Series 1 I enjoyed, but I didn't love. Series 2 and Series 3 and Series 4, my god, Series 4 was just so on point. But the later season of this show, from Series 2 onwards, I really, really latched onto and I absolutely adored. So, this is an add-on. I keep doing add-ons recently because I keep forgetting about things I want to say in these podcasts, but this is an add-on for my view of Barry, for my podcast on Barry. One thing I'm not sure if I mentioned or not, but just in case I didn't, and I've literally just finished recording the podcast, so I want to mention it here. This show goes in very unexpected directions with its storytelling and its plots, and to the point that I wouldn't have guessed where the series would have ended, even when I was on the penultimate episode, of the entirety of the show. I wouldn't have guessed where the series was going to end, because the writing is so unexpected and so suspense-driven that you really don't see anything coming. Anyway, back to the podcast at hand. And this apparently is the first thing that Bill Hader has directed. As far as I know, I don't know that for certain, but that's what I've gathered from looking up on Google, on IMDb as well. This is the first thing that Bill Hader has directed, and my god, he's got a good career ahead of him if this is, because his directing in this show is it's on another level. Like, his framing and his visual storytelling, it's engaging just in the direction itself. You can feel a lot of influence from Fargo, not only the Fargo movie directed by the Coen brothers, but also the Fargo TV show, which I was a big fan of. I didn't watch the last series of that, actually, but yeah, I was a big fan of the Fargo TV show as well, and you can feel a lot of influence from Fargo, both the film and the TV show, in Bill Hader's directing and his storytelling and his writing. It feels very Fargo, and I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but yeah, you can tell that, and I really liked how he just does comedy in this show, and how he frames characters, and how just how the camera moves, and his visual storytelling is on another level, because there's so many sequences in the show which are thrilling to watch and wouldn't necessarily be as thrilling if it was done by a different director. I mean, Bill Hader didn't direct all of this show. He directed all of the last series of the show, but he didn't direct all the episodes of this show in its entirety. But the episodes which he directs are something else. They really are. And I love the characters in this series as well. What the names here, just so I don't forget them. There's Sally, who is the girl that Barry is in love with. Yeah, she's a really interesting character, and the way that storyline goes is both funny and tragic. Also, you get Hank, which I love Hank because he kind of goes against the stereotype of gangsters. Because you see a lot of gangsters in the show, and he is a gangster as well, but he's not the sort of gangster you would expect. He plays it so well. The guy who plays him, I forgot the actor's name is now, but yeah, Hank is one of the funniest characters to watch. Took a bit of adjusting too, but Hank ended up becoming my second favourite character in this series. Fuchs as well, who's a person who gives Barry all of his tasks and, you know, tells him who to kill. He's really good, and that character really grew on me as the series went on, because I didn't love that character in the first two series, and then by the end of series 4, I couldn't keep my eyes off that character. Every time it was on screen, there was, yeah, so well written. Also, Cousineau, played by Henry Winkler. Yes, the Fonz himself is in this show. And by the way, I always find it funny that the show is called Barry, and in Arrested Development, Henry Winkler has a role in that, and his character's called Barry in that series. It's just a little odd piece of trivia there that I don't know why I decided to mention it. It's just where my brain works, you know. And I've been watching Arrested Development recently, and whenever he pops up in it, I'm laughing my head off because he's so funny. But his character is called Barry, and yet further down the line, he starred in a show called Barry, in which he plays my favourite character. Cousineau is such an interesting character, and he's so funny to watch. But also, there's so much more to him. He's a complex character. That Henry Winkler does a great job playing him. I think he won an Emmy for the first series with his performance. And, you know, even so I didn't love the first series, as I already mentioned, Henry Winkler was amazing. You know, all the Emmys that this show won for its first series for acting are very well deserved. And Henry Winkler, yeah, he is so good in the show. Very different than I've seen Henry Winkler before. Yeah, really something else. And I also I love how real this show feels as well. It's so enticing in its realism and its verisimilitude. And if you don't know what word is, look it up. But it's so enticing because you feel like you're watching real life people. You know, you get so invested into these characters and these storylines. You get invested into Sally's storyline, Hank's storyline, Fuchs' storyline, Cousineau's storyline, and also Barry's storyline. You know, Barry, who is the protagonist of the show, Bill Hader's playing him as well. So Bill Hader is pretty much the force behind the series. Not only is he writing it, not only directing it, but he's also starring in the lead role. You really feel his what am I trying to say? You really feel his input into the series, and his performance is, yeah, it's really, I mean, all of the performances are just amazing. But Bill Hader, there's something about his performance in this show where you never really know what he's thinking, or you never really know what he's going to do until he does it. You know what I mean? I think if you've seen the series, you know what I mean. Yeah, I really loved the way he played the title character, the titular character, should I say. And as I already mentioned, Henry Winkler, never seen him like this before. I hope he wins an Emmy for the final series, because I thought his performance in the final series was truly something else. And as what he mentioned, Hank is great, so is Cousineau, and so is Sally. There's other characters you meet along the way, like Cristobal, I think that's what the character's name is, who's also a joy to watch. And Cristobal's another gangster, but you really like these characters, even though most of the main characters, if not all the main characters in the show, are bad people. You still enjoy watching them. That's the thing. That's the way it's written. You shouldn't really like these characters, but you do because of the way it's written, because the writing is so on point, and even though these characters do evil things, you still enjoy watching them though. I don't know how he makes this work. As I've already mentioned, it's a masterclass. This show is a masterclass in how to balance suspense with comedy. There are so many funny moments. Like, one funny moment that comes to mind right now is when Barry is asked to do a monologue for his acting class, and he just copies the monologue out of Braveheart, you know, the famous one. And pardon me, and also, you know, one really suspense one that comes to mind is, well, the end of series 1 and the end of series 3 as well. You know, if you've seen this show, you know what I mean. I don't want to go on spoilers in case you haven't, and if you haven't seen the series, I would definitely recommend it. Stick with it, because if you're anything like me, it does take a bit of time to adjust to. You know, it is one of those shows which throws you straight in, and I didn't really adjust to it, if I'm being completely honest, till about Series 2. And even with Series 2, it took a bit more to adjust to, because Series 2 went in a different direction than I thought it would. But when I did adjust to this show, I was blown away by it. It's a magnificent piece of TV. And one other thing that I want to say is that this show ended on the same day that Succession ended, which, imagine that, two big, staple shows of the past 4 or so years ending on the same day. That would have been something else. I mean, Succession ended in this magnificent fashion, and so did Barry as well. And also, there's an annoying character that I keep getting into and say, and also, just be one or the other. And on the same week that Barry and Succession ended, Ted Lasso, quote unquote, ended as well. I said quotation marks there because Ted Lasso has not officially ended. There's some word out there that the show might return in some capacity in a spin-off or even in a 4th series. Personally, I don't think it should. I think they should leave it as it is. But, let's say Ted Lasso ended as well. So imagine that, all those shows ending on the same week. That would have been something within itself. And to have all these great ends to all these shows, like I thought the last episode of Ted Lasso I thought it was a perfect way to end that series, and I also loved the last episode of Succession. I thought that last episode of Succession might be one of the best episodes of Succession, period. And I love the way Barry ended as well, because all I'm going to say is it fit the characters perfectly, and I really loved this show by its end. I didn't love it in the beginning, but by the end, the writing was just so on point, the directing was just so sharp, and the way the storytelling was done, I was blown away by it. It's definitely one of the best TV shows of the past 5 years, and I can see why everyone was raving about it. Although I don't understand why everyone was raving about it with Series 1, but I can see why everyone was still raving about it after Series 1, and it is just brilliant. It's so intense to watch. It's so suspenseful to watch, but also it's so funny to watch, and it's a one-of-a-kind show. It's thrilling, it's exciting at times, it's scary at times, it's tragic at times, it's sad to watch, and it's also that sort of TV that you just want to keep watching. It's binge-worthy. I hate using that word binge, but it is. It's binge-worthy TV, if you will. And it's currently available on Now TV, or as it's called Now. Now TV has changed its name to Now, which is just a terrible name, because, what are you going to say? What are you going to watch now? Oh, I'm going to watch Now. That doesn't work. Anyway, but yeah, it's currently on Now TV. Hope you understand what I mean when I say that. And I would highly recommend it, because as I've already mentioned, it is a masterclass in how to balance suspense with comedy. And so, all in all, I'm going to say that the entirety of Barry, I'm going to say that it's a 9 out of 10. Yeah. Definitely one of the best TV shows of the last couple of years. And as for Season 4, do I think it's one of the best TV shows of this year so far? Definitely. I think it's up there, Succession. I might even prefer over the last season's Succession. I thought the last season's Succession was really something else. But it's still not my favourite TV show this year. I know objectively it's probably better than Daisy Jones and the Six, but Daisy Jones and the Six I just found enchanting, and yeah, I really loved that series. But it's probably my second favourite series of 2023 so far, and if you've been following my channel at the moment, you'll know that I've been reviewing a lot of TV shows, and I've got some more TV series reviews coming up in the next couple of days. But this one is really something else. If you haven't checked out Barry already, go and check it out. Highly recommend it. Great performances, great directing, great writing. It's so clever and so engaging, and so you get so invested in these characters, and the characters are so funny, and yet they're bad people. The characters are bad characters, but you enjoy watching them. The show is just brilliant. It's magnificent. I loved Barry. I loved Barry overall. I thought this show was amazing overall. Didn't love Series 1, but I loved Series 2, loved Series 3, and I loved Series 4. And as already mentioned, I thought the show was a masterclass in how to balance suspense with comedy. And so, as already said, I'm going to that Barry seasons 1 to 4 are a 9 out of 10 from me. Anyway, guys, that is it for the podcast for today. So if the lighting, so if you're watching on YouTube and the lighting's been on my face a bit too much, I always rely on natural lighting when I'm doing these podcasts or these reviews or whatnot, when I'm recording them for the YouTube channel, and the sun has been on and off in my area today, so apologies if the lighting has been a bit on and off whilst watching, if you're watching this podcast today, but hopefully you enjoyed this podcast nonetheless. I always feel like I'm apologising these podcasts. I should stop apologising. You know, I really should, because I think I do it too much. But if you have watched this podcast fully, then hopefully you enjoyed it, or if you've been listening to the podcast to its full, hopefully you enjoyed it, and let me know your thoughts on Barry if you watch the show as well. I know I'm late to the party, but better late than never, and I really want to give my thoughts on this show because it really grew on me, and I finished it about 2 weeks ago now. Just a little side note here, I finished about 2 weeks ago, and I've been waiting to do my review on it because I was doing all my other Indiana Jones reviews, and the more I think about it, the more I love this series. I might rewatch it as a whole again in, I don't know, the next year or so. But that's not the point I'm making. I need to go back onto the outro now. Yes, let me know your thoughts on Barry seasons 1 to 4, if you watched it, and if you liked it or if you didn't like it. Let me know in the comment section below. And if you haven't yet, please do click down below and like and subscribe on this podcast. I look forward to many more podcasts coming in the near future. Thank you as always for watching or listening, and I will see you guys again soon, but bye for now, bye!